How to become motivated. Whoa, technical difficulties. This took me a bit to get figured out. So, anyways, thanks for joining my first stream. Yay! On Twitch. What I have in my hands here, I'm not sure if I'm going to approach this thing. If you're familiar with my YouTube channel, um, I've been working on this guy for a little bit. It's not for myself. I'm getting it done so that I can sell it to somebody, hopefully. So it's kind of a commission-y kind of thing. I do a lot of miniatures, and I'll go ahead and put them up for sale after I finish painting them. This guy is a white dragon. He's not quite there yet. He's got like a blue tinge to him right now. What this is done is with ink. So first off, I did a dark blue on here, dark blue ink. I use this Bombay stuff, the Dr. P.H. Martin ink. So stuff works pretty good. Mix it really good before you apply it. Like use a mixer, like a Vortex Mixer or something. Because what happens is if you don't mix it up properly, what happens is it will be shiny. And if you mix it properly, it becomes more like paint, like a satin to a flat kind of color. So what I did was first put on the blue, and then I gave it a spray of the white over top of it, and then I've taken alcohol and reactivated it, so it kind of bled the blue through into the white, and thus you're getting this kind of blue kind of effect. It still needs to get a wash, another coating of white, but it's the white that I'm going to put over top of it's going to be more like a kind of like more of a bone white color, and then I'm going to go ahead and highlight in true white on top of that. So lots of work still to be done. I'm fighting for motivation. So it's one of those days where I don't really want to be painting, but I'm doing streams so that I can go ahead and keep myself going here. I've got a lot of miniatures to paint. Not only these D&D ones. I paint a lot of science fiction stuff. So just to let you know, that's my main thing. And I'm not a painter of GW stuff. Like I do have a couple of their things on hand, like the Palatine enforcers and stuff like that. But I usually paint boutique kind of miniatures and stuff. So these ones here, man, what's this one? Oh, this one is actually I believe it's a Reaper Bones. That Here's another Reaper Bones. This one's like an ambassador, science fiction kind of ambassador, space guy. Then we have the ambassador's queen, who's here. She's floating on her chair, and draped below her is her like her dress, which parts on her chair. So stuff like that. Really weird. Let's see. Here's another one I was working on as well. I believe this one was, I'm trying to remember. I think this one is one from Brother Vinny. Yeah, I think it's Brother Vinny. One of his miniatures. I got a lot of Brother Vinny minis. So, and I paint those ones too. This one I was using, like I'll paint stuff and also like for example, I will want to paint like this Minotaur, right? So as I'm painting this Minotaur, I will also have like a couple of minis on the side here so that I can go ahead and start working on them while this guy's drawing. So that's kind of like how I keep ahead of myself on getting all these miniatures done. My collection is pretty large. A lot of military style stuff. I play a lot of Traveller. So Traveller's a science fiction role-playing game, and which is one of my favorites. And it's an old school one. It's still being produced by Mongoose, and which reminds me, I just got the second edition Mongoose book, and just today it just came in the mail, along with a bunch of my ink for my printer. So, and I like to print my PDFs, so that's another thing that I do, print and bind, and then I do my own stuff too. So I print and bind my own books, and like using materials that I've created in PDF format. So I have a couple of programs like Zara, and I take Zara, and it's kind of like a publishing kind of program, kind of like Corel graphics, drawing graphics. So it's kind of like that, where you can put together a book with illustrations and stuff, and lots of words, and compile it all together and create a PDF out of it, which looks pretty professional. And Zara is a fairly reasonably priced software, and I use that to just to basically make stuff like graphic paper, character sheets, homemade character sheets, that sort of thing. So I like doing that. I like making my own kinds of things like that. Like, for example, I got a little sheet here on the side of a Traveller sheet, which I have done, and this is a one that I created on the fly. I also got an interactive version of this guy too, so that if I wanted to, I could create a PDF that you can fill in all the items that you want here. It goes through all the terms. This is kind of like a basic sheet to go ahead and start creating a character on, because you go through a 4-year term each time, and you record down the events that happen, and then once you've finished all your terms, then you are ready to play the game. So you could end up with a character which is between 18 years old and 100 years old, if you can last it that long. If you want to play an old character, you can do that. That's what I like about Traveller, is you're not starting fresh, like a D&D character where they only have where they start at level 1. I mean, you could start off at different levels, but when you start off level 1, you really don't have much of a backstory. So whereas level 3 and 4, you'll probably have a little bit more of a cooler backdrop behind your character, with a little bit of history. This game of Traveller creates your history, so you can start right away with a Han Solo style character that has this nefarious background or whatever, and yeah. So anyways, now I know I don't have anybody in my chat right now. I'm brand new. Like I say, this is my new channel for Twitch, and well, I hope to gain some followers eventually, so that will follow me and watch me paint. That's what I'm gonna be doing most of the time here. Although I do plan on doing some other stuff, like maybe show off some game materials and stuff that you probably never considered, and a lot of it's going to be science fiction. I do have a lot of stuff like Numenera, The Strange. Looking over there at my bookshelf, I got like Starfinder. I do have the traditional Dungeon Crawl classics, the D&D fifth edition, The Expanse, got Mech Warrior. What else? Um, they say Traveler and kind of like all the Cepheus engine, like Traveler add-ons, like Hostile and stuff like that. Um, some of my favorite stuff too, like Game Master, will be usually the Traveler stuff, but I mean I like Numenera and stuff like that, so I like the way the mechanics work in that. So and I've had a live like a real group here in my town do a lot of Numenera. So and due to the COVID thing, it's kind of slowed down. So I've just been doing minis and making adventures and stuff like that. And I'll even give some insight on how I make adventures and things like that. Working on campaigns. So I've been in role playing games since I guess about '78 when I bought my box set of Gamma World, and at the time we had no idea how to play role playing games or anything. So when I got Gamma World, I opened it up, and we were used to traditional SPI and Avalon Hill games, and those are big like bookcase games that come in a big box, and they got like maps that are on hex boards and stuff, and or other types of maps with really crazy graphics on them. It was the '70s, and so there was a lot of like cool, funky kind of stuff going on with games, and we would play a lot of these board games, war games and stuff like that. So we were used to these rules being lined up as you got rule 1 and then rule 111 and then 112 and then 113 and then 114 and then 121 and then 123. So that would all be organized kind of in these kind of like version numbers that you would get on software nowadays. And each of the rules would get into a specific thing, and so your rule on 121 is going to be 121, 122, 123, all going into the same rule in different aspects. So we were used to rules being written like that. And when we got Gamma World, it was written so odd that it was like, how do you, like, is this a war game? Do you have like armies or what? It came with a map with that was made with graph paper, and it was like a broken version of the United States and Lower Canada. It was just really weird looking, and we were trying to read the rules and figure out how this was all gonna work. What was a role-playing game? I mean, I picked up the box, thought it looked really cool and everything, thought I'd give it a try, and it had pretty weird dice in it and stuff. So yeah, that was my first experience trying to get into a role-playing game, and we didn't figure out how role-playing games worked until one of my buddies brothers, his older brother, of course I was only like 13 back then, and his older brother was like driving a car and used to go to Vancouver and back, and he went to Vancouver. I guess he went to one of these conventions, and they basically showed you how to play some of these games. So when his brother came back, he ended up taking us into D&D and showing us what a role-playing game was all about. So then we started playing D&D, and that's how I got into role-playing games and learning how to play them. I like the idea of creating stuff, so I decided to try dungeon mastering and stuff like that. And I tell you, it was I was probably the worst dungeon master you could ever encounter back then. But once I learned from other dungeon masters, like my buddy's brother. It started to get a little bit more smoother. So um, yeah. So here I am procrastinating, and I want to get some stuff done here. So where to start? Sometimes it's hard. You got too many minis. So what do you do? Um, do I want to start with an owlbear? Do I want to start with a giant? The Etten. I also got a knight here, which I could do as well. I got a bunch of bugbears as well, so I know these guys are going to be coming up in my next Castles and Crusades game. So out of all the fantasy games, I prefer playing Castles and Crusades. It's simple, straightforward. Don't have like a whole ton of rules and interacting like blocks that go into them, like the games, like the D&D games and Pathfinder games are like now. But it's using the ascending armor class system, which you find in version 3 onwards. So that is cool. It makes it a little easier than the old THACO, but it's also kind of the same as second edition, where your classes are set and have like a little bit of wiggle room that you can work with your DM to, you know, kind of customize them a little bit. Other than that, like I say, you don't have the building blocks that you do nowadays, which can pile up and start totally confusing you. So if you're not used to playing that, Castles and Crusades is a good way to start if you want to learn something easier, simpler, and, you know, not so messy and full of questions. To give you an idea of what's going on here on the screen, so in front of you here is going to be my camera for showing you my actual as I'm painting. So it gives you a fairly decent close-up. This is a better camera out of all of these three. The other two are the same camera, but yeah, like two different cameras. But they're not as like this one in front here. I call it my body cam, so you can see my little label up here is as body cam. Down in the bottom corner here, you can see where my brush is now. This is the palette cam. So this is my wet palette, which you can see the sponge underneath there, and that's basically, I'll bring it out to the front. One of these Masterson palettes. So it's got the sponge, and I put my own paper in there to make it more favorable to the paint that I'm using. Also, just to kind of show you on the side here, I got things that help out too, and mixing things. Recently we had Easter, so the Cadbury eggs. These are the little containers that the egg used to be in. So you'd have a bottom and a top, like so. So they were like, you know, you'd have the Cadbury Easter egg in there, right? So you pull them apart, and so what I did was, these are great for you know, doing a little bit of mixing in them in order to put into, like, I do have an airbrush here and a compressor and everything, and off the side I have a Vortex Mixer, which you might be able to hear. So this is what it looks like. You know, one that you press down on and it automatically starts. Getting older, so shaking these things all day messes up my hands, so I try to avoid doing that as much as possible. Every once in a while you'll see me inadvertently shaking a bottle and realizing, oh, I have a Vortex Mixer, I should just do that. And behind me, I've got, if you're wondering what the heck is this kind of stuff, on either side, I have some guitars and stuff. So that's my old Destiny from the 1990s when I used to be in bands. I got stuff like my Strat here as well. So, my Strat. That's a VG Strat. Made in the States. And then I have stuff like my bass guitar here as well, which is, this is the, it's a Fender P-Bass, but it is it's called a P-Bass Light. So it's one that was made when they used to make them in Japan. So that's an actual Japanese-made Fender bass guitar, and that has active pickups in it. One of the first bass guitars to have active pickups, and it's a nice sounding bass. I like it. I used to play bass before I started playing guitar, so. And that was back in the 70s too. So, all right. Now that we have kind of like, you've got a little bit of introduction on who I am, sort of. And I've been painting for a long time. I am not the type of painter that, I mean, I could probably try to get, into the competition grade kind of stuff, but I prefer to just have fun with painting. So instead of wrestling with it too much, stuff that I'm painting is going to be stuff that you would get ready for the tabletop. Maybe a little bit, not a rushed version, but you want to have it look nice. You can probably take photos of it and be proud of it. So I'm not going to tell you stuff is right or wrong, how to make stuff. So like saying that my way is the perfect way or whatever. Everything that I do, it's all options. So you can decide to follow along with your own miniatures and take pointers from me if you want to, and maybe you can make suggestions on the channel as well and say, hey Rick, why don't you crank up your microphone or something? Let me know if I'm doing something wrong here. So or you want to see a different type of light on the screen here on these minis or something. I do have a mix of LEDs here. I have a warm LED, more of a warm, a cool. I've got a cool one over here. So I have like 3 of them here going on. The one that I have beside me on this side is it's one of those ones that has the I'm not sure if I'll be able to get it to the screen, but it's the round donut shaped one, and it's got a magnifying glass on the in the center of it, so it helps me in seeing stuff a little bit more close up. Other things that I have are these guys here, which you can put on your head and get a really good close-up look on what you're doing. I only use these if I'm doing like super intricate details, which is not all the time. So I'll only pull these out when I really need to. My eyes are pretty good. I had them operated on a little while ago. Had the lenses blasted out and put plastic ones in, so I can see pretty good. I used to see horribly before this, so I was kind of like, I'm not going to be able to paint for very long here. And the doctors fixed me up, and now I can see pretty much perfectly, and without glasses so much. I mean, I could use glasses to really fine tune them, but I really don't want to mess with things. I feel I can see perfectly fine. I'm thinking maybe we should start on this Minotaur since it's going to be featured in a game coming up here. So we're going to start with some dark brown. Let's see what I have around here. Just on hand, I have some Monster Brown. Gray green, no. Let's see, I've got some black, so I'm going to go ahead and mix up a touch of black here. And this is the Vallejo stuff, so I like a Vallejo. It works pretty good. So let's see where we are on the palette here. A little drop there to get us started. Vallejo is really thick stuff, so it thins with a lot of water, so you can make it last longer that way. The other one that I'm going to be using here, this one is Fur Brown. So Fur Brown, I will get it mixed here with my Vortex Mixer and get it onto the palette here. Hopefully I've got enough of a hole on that one. I do have a little the stuff that I use to pin my miniatures materials. So I use kind of this aluminum wire, and if I need to, I got myself a piece of wire here that I can use to poke it and let the paint flow out a little easier. Also, let's see, I'm going to use a little bit of it's a kind of toss-up. Yellow. Do I want to use ochre or this, or tan earth? We'll actually use some tan earth. This is one of the thinner Vallejos that you can get out there. It is the Model Air. So this is the thinnest out of all three of the paints that you're going to see here. So the black is the Vallejo. The brown is a Army Painter, which is thinner, but still a fairly thick consistency. And this stuff, you'll see once I go ahead and get it onto the palette, it's going to be a tad bit more runnier. So a little bit more is required on the palette. Now for brushes, this is a brush that I have from Michael's Artist Loft brush. This is a synthetic brush, so it's just meant for it's kind of a throwaway brush, but they're not bad. If you got to go through them and see which ones have a nice tip on them. The other one here, yeah, this one here has a really nice tip on it. You can see it's got a pretty fine point on it, and it's the same, same cheapy brush. This one being a 1, the other one being a 3. Then I have 2s, but I have the 2s in a different brush. This one's more of an oil brush, so they use a better hair on the brush itself, and these aren't as stiff as those synthetic ones. So these are fine. So this is the same thing. So I got a couple of those. Other brushes I have are these ones here, which are the M Artis Opus brushes, and these are expensive brushes. So I only pull these out when I really need to get fine detail. This one needs to be cleaned, but you can see that the point on this one's pretty good. So that one is a 0, and then I have this one, which is a 1. So these are you can tell that the hair on this one is a lot shorter, so it's more stubbier. You got a lot more control when you're moving your brush on the surface. So this one sweeps around, this one stays put, so it's good for like putting like little stipples, like dots, details, so it's very good for that. And that's the only time I really use this one. And the kit has 4 brushes in it. I also got a 00 and a 000. So the 000 is like so small, it rivals that of the of even the Army Painter detail brush here, insane detail brush. So you can see side by side, even though my Army Painter brush needs a little bit of wetness on there to get it to look proper. And I'm sorry about the background. This here is a sheet of paper that's on my desk here. Actually, I'm on a table. Underneath this table is a touchscreen TV, so that's built into the table, and which was from a Koisk. One of those screens that you would find in, say, like McDonald's for ordering on. So you go up to the touch screen and you start pressing in your numbers and stuff like that for your order. That's what's underneath here. It's a 40-inch Koisk screen, which I garnished from a local store, which gave it to me because it saved them the charges of having to take it all the way back to their headquarters, and they were going to be disposing of them anyways. So, since they were no longer using them in the stores that they were in. The sheet here is a piece of it's a watercolor paper. So I just use it to weep off any kind of moisture that I have on my brush, and sometimes I get paint on here. Sometimes I'll thin my paint out on here, so it's handy to have a piece of this paper on here to absorb any kind of spilling or that sort of thing. Wet palette there keeps my paint nice and moist, so it's all good. I am going to use a little thicker of a brush, something that I'm not too particular on detail, because we are going to be painting the fur off of this Minotaur first. So just to give you an idea of how I'm going to approach my painting, I always go to the skin or of like the lowest point on the body, which would be the skin, because you'd have the skin layer, and then you'd have like fur, and then you'd have clothing on top of that, and you'd have armor on top of the clothing. So I work that way, so it makes it a little easier, because when you're doing like the skin first, and then you're painting like the hair next, if you mess up, well, you'll have less chance of a mess up, because you're painting something on top which has bumps over top of this lower layer called the skin. So if I was to do the hair first, and say the armor and all that stuff, and then approach the skin, and then you'd end up having a greater chance of touching the bumps that are higher up. So it'd be the hair, and so you'd be painting the skin, and then you'd be accidentally touching the bumps that are higher up above the skin. So it'd be the hair on the back of his neck and stuff like that. So I try to work that way, so I'm a little bit cleaner that way. So first off, we're going to go ahead and start with a mixture between the black and some of this brown. You get a little bit of the water off the side here and mix it in. So I want a fairly dark brown going on here, not quite and then I'm going to start lightening up like on his chest and stuff like that. So starting with the dark brown and working my way up in lighter colors. So let's get this all coated. Now I did a kind of like a zenithal. I had a problem with my airbrush just before we aired, where I was getting a lot of spatter, so I just went ahead, and these were originally coated in a black, the Vallejo black. I like the smell of Vallejo primer. It's kind of got that candy smell to it, so I used that and to coat my minis in total black, and then I go ahead and I spray a zenithal over top of it, well, a gray. But the thing is, it was spattering, so I went ahead instead, took a brush and just dry brushed the gray over top of it just to save me some time. So it works fairly effective. I'm just getting in here just to get everything coated properly. I don't care that I am touching horns or the mane on this guy with this brown, because it's gonna get coated over when it becomes its turn to get colored, painted. So I just had a good supper. Holy smokes, I made some beef dippers. So with the au jus and potatoes and broccoli. You got to eat good once in a while. Have some veggies and stuff like that. Otherwise, things go south and ugly pretty fast. Especially when you're my age. You got to eat better. Sometimes I don't eat better. Alright, so he's got some sort of a, I'm going to work on his legs getting down here next. So I have everything basically coated here on his upper torso. He's got some sort of outfit on covering part of his legs. So I'm going to try to avoid painting that too much. And I'm not too worried about like the black, that I'm more worried about covering most of the gray because that's kind of the upper that's showing the most right now. Anything black can stay kind of black because it's in the recesses, so I'm not too worried about that kind of a coverage. That brown having to cover every black surface here. So or brown, I should say. There we go. And my streams here are going to be basically 2 nights a week. I'm going to try and keep to that, because if I keep with it, it's going to keep me motivated to keep on painting. I got lots of miniatures to paint. Like, I don't have a crazy amount of them where it's like, you know, a pile of shame, but it could get there pretty quickly if I didn't do this. So we got the dark brown going on here. I also got a heater, one of those electric heaters, the ones with the fins on it. So I use that to go ahead and put my miniature over on top of. Like I put it on top of like a piece of cardboard that the miniature stands on. The heat, you know, goes all the way around the miniature and cures it pretty fast. So I like to use that. Makes a pretty quick work on making the miniature, cure the miniature up pretty good, so you can get another coating on it. It's drying fairly good because where I'm at, it's still we're gonna have snow flurries tonight, so I want to make sure that I'm not going to freeze my paint here, so I keep the heat on for a while. I know it's probably getting on to be quite warm weather, where most of you people are. I'm not so fortunate. I'm way northern Canada, like close to the Arctic Circle, northern Canada. So not the most wondrous weather here. I mean, but I do like it because it's a temperature like during, like, I used to live in the Okanagan, which was pretty hot, and that's you know, that's southern BC, and that was during the summer that would get fairly like almost too hot to be bearable. So I'm gonna get some lighter tone here on his chest and on his muscles. So I'm just dabbing, so it's not really any kind of, I'm just trying to make it look good and bring out his muscles a little bit, you know. I kind of get that help kind of emphasize things. I know it's a fairly dark thing that you're looking at here. Hopefully it's not too bad for seeing detail. So I'm kind of doing a wet version of a dry brush over top, and that's my main go-to tactic here, is using kind of a dry brushing style over top of my minis with each layer, because I mean, you almost do that with an airbrush. You know, it's the same sort of style of painting, but instead of using an airbrush, you're using a brush. And I feel like I can have a little bit more control right now. I'm not that proficient with the airbrush yet. Like, I can do certain things, but I want to get a little bit better before I start approaching miniatures of this size. Larger size, like that dragon that I first showed you in the beginning of this stream, way easier to work on something like that. So I'm putting lighter colors up top where they're going to be needed. To show a better contrast on his muscles here. And I might emphasize that a little bit with a wash in a little bit here. But probably not tonight. I don't know how far I'm going to get on painting this guy as far as the stream goes. But I'm not going to continue painting this guy off stream. So when you see me come back, I will be continuing on with this guy. And adding a little bit more lighter detail as we go on here. So far, so good. We're going to let him dry. Let me say I have a couple other miniatures here that I wouldn't mind going on a little bit further from what I had before. Oh yeah, those familiar with me on YouTube. I'm going to grab this other mini. Which I was working on, and it can use some of this this darker color, so some black in here just to get it. So let's see. Yeah, we'll do this on his bottom of his, where his shoes, his boots are basically. This guy's got a kind of a helmet on and stuff, so as we get this guy more detailed, you'll see he's kind of like a, you know, a super villain kind of looking dude. So we'll just get the basic brown on his legs here. Just get him going. You'll find that as soon as you get another, like you get one coating on there, and then as soon as you get the second coating onto it, it gets a little bit more defined with these paints. You don't go about it trying to get everything done with one coat. It just doesn't work properly that way. You just mess up your miniature if you're not careful. He does have a fair bit of lighter skin going on here, so I could probably work on that a little bit here. And clean off this brush and get something that's a little bit more that I can work with other than a broad brush like this guy. And this isn't a very like like this thing is all like tattered and everything, so I just use it to do some basic coats on stuff. My Opus brushes out of the way here. So I'm not going to use these until we get into like really major details here. Put that to the side. Also, show you stuff that I have coming up here. We'll have some the full set of Bloodborne here, the basic. So it's just basically the main core box set. You see, this hasn't even been opened yet. This is one of the add-ons called Murgo's Loft. So Murgo's Loft and some sort of citadel of something. I can't remember what it was. There's like four boxes here. So a core box and 3 extra boxes here. I will eventually open these guys up and start working on. Like I say, if you haven't seen my YouTube channel, it's not named yet because I don't have enough followers on that channel. But one of these days, I will have 100 followers there and be able to call it 28 millimeter RPG and give you a decent link. You can look me up on YouTube as well. 28 millimeter RPG, spelt the same way as what's up here, and you'll see the same logo and all that stuff. So yeah, I also got, like I was saying, I got like Zombicide here, Deep Madness. I had pretty much gotten almost all of Deep Madness done, as far as a board worthy paint job goes. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more detail on some of them, some of the boss models. So I do have a few. I did go all in on that one, so I have everything on Deep Madness, and there is a lot of miniatures. Other ones that I've been working on here is the AMC Walking Dead No Sanctuary series as well. I got all those. My wife is a big Walking Dead fan, so I got that so that we could eventually play a board game of that. Other games that I have is like Fantasy Trip, Arkham Horror, like the old second edition Arkham Horror. I got lots of that. I think I have every Arkham Horror in that series except for one. And I'm trying to remember which one it was. Is it Misatonic expansion? No, I have Misatonic. I believe it's some sort. It's one of the big expansions. I got all the rest of all the small ones too. But everything except for one box, and that one box right now on eBay is gonna cost me like, $200-300 to get. It's like really expensive now since they've discontinued it. I mean, I could find a used copy since all my copies are already opened and played. I also got the third edition of Arkham Horror as well, too, the newer one. But I haven't played it yet. I would like to, but there are too many other things to play in the meantime here. So back on track here. We're gonna get some Barbarian Flesh. Let's see, is that what we'll use? Barbarian Flesh, or should we do a mix? I kind of grabbed a little ensemble of different colors here. So there I go. Start shaking with my hands. Yeah, I used to be a floor layer, and so a lot of cutting carpet and stuff like that, and then tile setting. Oh, I did tons of tile setting. I used to do like crazy mosaics. I used to make a lot of money doing that. I'm retired from that. I can't do that anymore. I've had like over 30 years of doing floor laying. My knees are shot, so there's no way I can continue doing that. I do retail sales now, so I don't do that construction stuff no more unless my kids need me to do something. We moved up to northern Alberta because my daughter came up here and she decided they were going to start a family up here. So my wife was like, well, we got to move up there. So we sold our house in the sunny Okanagan and moved up to the frozen north where it's still winter up here, and yet it's like super hot and and sunny in the Okanagan right now. Well, not right now. The thing I do like about the north, I was getting to, which I got sidetracked by myself, is that during the summer, you got so much daylight. The sun does not go down until around, well, it still kind of hovers along the horizon. Like you can still kind of get that over glow from the sun just setting behind the earth, but you can still see it. And I mean see the glow. So that goes on until about 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. Sometimes it all depends on what time of the year. I don't go out there all the time at that time of the night. I gotta get some sleep, so I don't venture out to see exactly how long it takes before that sun actually goes down. But I had done an overnight trip from Edmonton to where I live now, and that's like it's a good 4-5 hour drive from Edmonton, and that's pretty far up north Alberta, Edmonton. And like I said, I'm farther up north than that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and glaze some lighter colors here. Oop, I went ahead and touched his face here. I did not intend on that. But during that trip, I swear to you, that sun did not like the sun, even though it dipped down below the horizon, it was still fairly light out. So there we go, a little bit of highlighting there. Get those muscles around the rib happening. So I'm just kind of giving it somewhat of a dry brushing effect here. On the ripples of his muscles on the stomach. There we go. So that should get him a little bit more detailed there. I still need to paint his belt and his crotch protector, I guess, that he's wearing, or something like that, and get more details going on the back here. So I'll do the same thing, give it a little bit of a dry brushing effect. I'm just using the edge of my brush to get a little bit of that paint off, and lighten up his hands, his fingers here. He even has veins on his hands here that you can see that are being picked out. It's kind of cool on this mini. It's quite a bit of detail for a Reaper miniature. So far, so good. Another thing you should always have on hand is some of this soap for your brush. Always clean your brushes, because man, it sucks having a brush go and bristle out on you and not retain a nice point on it anymore. So let's grab a little bit of water here. Do a little bit of mixing here to get a brackish looking brown. There is a fair bit of paint loaded on my brush, but it's thin, quite thin, so I just smear it around to get it into where I need it. And it's boots. I really don't put a lot of attention onto the boots. I go with more neutral kind of colors because you want to have most of your focus being on the top of the miniature. So mute the colors down below. That's my thing. A lot of times I almost don't, I barely even touch the lower half of a miniature, just to because you want that focus being on the top of the miniature. So you put most of your colors up there, and that's where everybody focuses on. They don't take too much notice on the legs, because you're not like making a Space Marine where you've got like he's just a big bulky suit of armor. These guys, their legs are small and tucked down, usually like in this crouch position. It's going to be basically dark underneath there. Like you're not going to really notice too much. Now this guy does have buckles on the sides of his boot here, so I am going to have to go ahead and give a little bit of detail on that once once the color starts coming together on his boots and I get everything to that point where I start getting into details. Right now I don't worry about it. It would sure be nice to have somebody to talk to, especially on the chat. I usually have my buddy Dwayne, who was my guitar player from way back in the 90s. He would regularly come on and yak with me. Sometimes he would catch me right when I was coming off of a stream, so I don't have him, but we talk about the good old days and stuff. So it is nice to have somebody to bounce back. And he doesn't play role-playing games like he has. I've introduced him into Traveler, and he could probably give you a few good stories about some of my old Traveler games back in the 90s there, and the 80s, as we've been friends for a good long time. And coincidentally, his daughter is friends with my son. I have lots of kids, so I have 3 kids. One of my kids, she's in her 30s, and my youngest is just getting out of high school now. This is last year. So, and he's actually a streamer too. He streams stuff. His game playing on Xbox. So one thing I wouldn't mind getting into also on this channel is I can host games through Fantasy Grounds. If you know what the virtual tabletop is, check it out. I can host people with the free demo version, so any player that wants to play doesn't have to pay any money to get onto my game. So Usually you'll have to get the player version of Fantasy Grounds, but I have the ultimate version. And I've been a Fantasy Grounds user since, oh God, the early 2000s, when it was owned by a company up in Sweden, I think it was, or something. Sweden, Denmark, Sweden. It is Sweden. That's when I got into it, and when Doug Davidson took over, he just basically transferred everybody's, account, so you didn't have to pay a second time or anything when it went to his hands, which was awesome. And we got so much cool new stuff in our Fantasy Grounds, new systems. He did awesome. He made that company into what it is now. So it wasn't going to stagnate in his hands. So really good job on Doug Davidson making it what it is today. If you haven't tried Fantasy Grounds, it's pretty awesome. I mean, if you're a roll 20 player, there's a lot of things that Fantasy Grounds does, which roll 20 doesn't do. And I do have the Unity version, which, I mean, it does so much more now. You can create your maps in that program. You don't need any software like Photoshop or something like that to go ahead and start making your maps. You just make it inside Fantasy Grounds now. It's all done with assets, and it's really lightweight on the system now. So Mr. Superhero's getting pretty good here. So with some details. There you go. You get to see a little bit more of a later version of a miniature as it starts to take form, instead of watching me paint brown on a Minotaur all day. So bonus. That's what you're going to like about my channel. You're not going to see just one miniature getting made. You're going to see lots of miniatures getting made during one session. That's the way I work. That's the way I have to work. Because, if I didn't, if I was just working on one mini continuously through one stream, I wouldn't get anything done. It would suck. Now, Mr. Minotaur. Get some glazing going here. Okay, so with the glaze, you want to make sure you get quite a bit of it off, like the wetness off of your brush. And even though it looks like I am, I'm going to try and get a little bit more centered here on the screen for you guys. Even though it does look like I'm putting a lot on, this is a light glaze. So the glaze is going to, when it dries, it doesn't dry that color. It dries dulled down from what it looks like right now. So you're seeing me add this extra light color on here. It will darken down when it dries. It does not stay light. I want to try and get his ribs there and everything too. So I kind of use the side of my brush to kind of grade over top of his muscles. It's kind of like dry brushing, but it's It's not because you're using a wet brush, but it's the same idea. You're just touching the tops of wherever the most lumpiest part of the skin is, and thus highlighting only that part of it. You see where it's in between his shoulder blades here, it's still quite dark, like almost black, but it is brown. It's just a dark brown. So we might get a little bit of blue in here on his arms, just so it gives it that a bit of tonal effect on there. It's using a bit of color in stuff like skin helps. Even if it's animal skin like this, blue. A little bit of a tinge of blue in there will definitely pop this guy a little bit more. Get his fingers there. I do have some Vallejo shifter paints coming in as well, which I cannot wait for them to come in, because I saw a video where it was what's his name? Well, you read his name as Angel. Giraldez. He's from Spain. You probably know of him if you're into mini painting. He painted all the, miniatures for the games that you see on a lot of demonstrations for like Corvus Belli, that sort of stuff. He paints a lot of stuff for Cool Mini or Not. So if you see his game being played professionally on a Cool Mini or Not video, it is likely done by him. And he did a video on using the shifter paint, which was really awesome. I liked what he was doing there, and I think the shifting paint works really well when you're trying to make a metal sword, where you don't want to go ahead and start doing the non-metallic metal. You don't want to get into that, trying to blend stuff, and the shifter paint works well doing that for you naturally. So, and watching his video on how he did it, it was pretty darn cool. Something I want to try. So I am going to invest. Well, I have invested. They're on its way. And yeah, heads up, paint is going up in price. So I can tell you that. My wife works for PPG, and until things get sorted out in Texas, paint is gonna start skyrocketing. Right now, there's a super shortage of paint in Canada right now, and likely going all over the States. So that kind of sucks for houses, developments, that sort of stuff. There's a lot of companies up here that paint their oil rigs and stuff, and that's what she supplies paint for. And there's a big shortage of white, so if you're looking for white caulking, white caulking, the stuff that you use for covering, putting a bead in your bathroom, kind of idea. You'll find that you can't get white caulking because the titanium white is produced in in the States, in the factories that have suffered damage over the winter here. So that's kind of sucks. Yeah, try to brighten up the face a little bit on this forehead. There we go. It'd be nice to have somebody else to yak to. I should get Dwayne on here and do some talking at me. He doesn't mind watching me paint miniatures, but he's usually playing some sort of racing game or some sort of Ubisoft game. I play a few PC games myself, but not as much as those guys. They're they play too many. I can't play games that long. You know? I do have a lot of games, but it just doesn't appeal to me anymore, like it used to when I was younger. We're just using some more fur brown here from Army Painter and making sure it's not too thick. And I'm just going to go over the hair on the Minotaur. Might go darker. There we go. But not too dark. Mix it a little bit. Able to see me mix a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm gonna, spend too much extra cash on getting, some super duper cameras or something here. I'm not too sure yet. See how this goes. So you never know if I start streaming, games like on Fantasy Grounds. I don't really need anything than you guys watching a screen instead of a camera of me. I mean, yeah, I could probably use the face cam and use the camera up here quite well to show my face, but as far as it goes with a main camera, if I'm doing something that's on the PC, well, then you're just going to get my screen. So especially when it's like a map, looking at the Fantasy Grounds UI. So now I want to get a little better look here, so I'm going to use my my magnifying unit here and get a better look. So I'm able to see a lot better details using this. Okay, I see how he's I was wondering about this part here underneath his arm, between his chest muscle here and the back, so basically his armpit. So just seeing where things were going there. how it was all fitting together as far as the model went. So want to make sure I get in where his main. I don't know if you call that a mane. That's it's on a cow, right? So, do you really call it a mane? No, it's not a mane. It's called something else, but I'm not going to go ahead and start looking it up. So, make sure this paint is a little dry, because I want to get features popping out here. So I'm doing kind of what I was saying again, you know, kind of a dry brushing effect going on his face. I want to keep it somewhat dark. At the same time, I do have to get some details coming out, so one thing that I should try to get in there is use a bit of this lighter color here. Try to get his teeth. He's got teeth here. So I want to get those before I start getting too much in around his mouth, because if I touch up his teeth now, then I can work on his lips. Not sure how well you can see that, but the yeah, there is a bit of detail in where his chompers are there. So then get a little bit more detailed around his lips. I'm just cleaning off this brush. This is my higher class artist loft brush. I'm cleaning. I want to make sure it's got a good point still. To get all that water off of it. And drag it across the paper. Keep that point going. I grab one of my Opus paints brushes here. And I will use the number one brush. Yep, number one brush. Thing with these glasses, to get really close up, I can just probably just barely see them in my my body cam. There we go. Getting the nostrils show up a little bit here. And the ridges around his eyes. That's popping now. And I want to get the cheekbone. On both sides so you can really get to see his face a little better. That looks all right. The thing was, I didn't want to touch his teeth because, you know, it messes things up. Now, those horns. Use a little bit of corpse pale on there. Again, it's an army painter paint. I want to get the horns going to a lighter color. But they're not going to stay this color. I'm gonna fade them out to a different color on the base. Probably a darker reddish color, and then the black tips on the ends of his horns. Make sure I get fairly good coverage on his horns here. Especially in the center where this color is actually going to be more prominent. And you also have to be careful that you're not going to hit any other facial feature on here and mess things up on his face when you've already worked so hard to get it to look like what you want it to. Get a little bit of red and a little bit of brown. Or do I have a reddish brown here? I don't have a reddish brown currently around me at the moment. I do have something over there on my shelf. I don't really feel like getting my butt up and going right to there. I have some brown on my palette here. So I'm just going to use a little bit of red with what I have and see if I can get something that I can work with. spend a lot of time mixing your paint, I tell you. Okay, let's see how this goes. There we go. A little bit of red on the palette. Probably can't see that because I kind of took it off the edge there for you, off camera. So a little bit of red here, and a little bit of brown. I want to give it kind of like a little tinge of orangey, but make it dark as well. Orangey dark. There we go. That's what I want. More that. Kind of like a dark brick red, but really more brown. I turned my autofocus off on my camera because it will autofocus on the wrong spot. It will autofocus on my hands a lot. So I discovered that when I was trying to get stuff set up for YouTube. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on doing videos for YouTube. I'm not sure yet. I don't like the way that platform treats its creators, so I would prefer to go someplace else. That appreciates people that put time into making something people will want to watch. There we go. Kind of mix that in. I'm not using any reference material or anything. I'm just making stuff up as I go along here, so. Get rid of most of the paint here off of here. And try to start blending it in a bit. Horns are interesting things. They got their own character. Horns are never the same on each animal. Even in the same species, it's it always looks different. You don't know what you get until it dries, so wait till that dries and then continue on, see where I need more lighter color, more darker color, that sort of thing. Now for its little side, whatever that's called, some sort of side, like a pauldron kind of thing, only on its hip. Figure out where I'm going to go with that. Maybe a purple, eh? A purple. We'll do that. A purpley color. Take a couple of coats here to get this purple going. That purple color, purple. It's purple. Purple's got pretty good coverage here. Let that dry, and then I will go a little more darker on either side here. Probably start working on that now. A little bit of wet blending. That's his tail on the back there, but I'm not going to be able to get to that until I get to his whatever the hell they call it, loinclothy kind of thing going over the back of his butt and the front. Something like that. Some sort of belt going around there too. Figure where I'm going to go on with that. I just might have to go black with that again. So go black on the where the belt is, and then give it highlights. Possibly when I get the color shift paints. Well, not color shift, the shifter paints coming in. I will work on that and get that looking proper. I think it needs more, a little bit more brown, like more orange brown in him. I think there's always room for improvement on your miniature as you're painting him. As long as you got thin coats going on, you can readjust it as you go along. So coming up to the last 15 here of the of my session. Yep. Possibly a brown. So let's go with earth, and we're going to glaze this earth on. So get rid of this artist Opus brush, put to the side. Get myself a brush that's more suited to adding a little bit more wetness. So I'm going with a fairly big brush here. This one's going to be a 7. The reason is for the extra water inside to keep that glaze going good. Is that going to be orangey enough? I don't know. I'm going to have to go ahead and find a different color here. Be right back. It's a problem when you got a lot of colors to choose from. I think this one will do. This one's an orange brown. So, going with this guy. Not too sure how close the, well, the color looks, you know, pretty. I mean, on my monitors and stuff, it looks pretty close to the real thing. So. I think we're just gonna go ahead and glaze some brown on this guy. Orange brown. Once again, puncturing a hole into the cap through the dry paint. Because Vallejo tends to do that. Get a fair bit of water here on my tip, my brush. like I say, we are glazing. To give it a bit more of a brown color. Orange brown in that color. It's going to look kind of prominent right now until it dries. Once it dries, you'll be able to see it'll dry transparent from what it's looking like now. So where it is darker underneath it, it will dry darker. Where it is lighter, it will dry lighter. I'm going to get more of that bovine color into them. And in order to do that, we're doing drastic measures. And let's get his hands as well. So why doesn't a Minotaur have hooves on his hands, but he's got hooves on his feet? You remember the Minotaur? The Minotaur had feet instead of hooves. And I believe that was a Kryn thing, Dragonlance. Strangely enough. We played a lot of Dragonlance back in the day. That was but we didn't play like he had. Our game master had the modules and everything, but he was more our story, not the story that you were being handed. He had all the locations and he had his own idea of where we fitted in the story. So we had a lot of fun with it back in the day. It's great when you have a game master that can do that for you. Play the game where you're the heroes, not the not the Dragonlance characters. I didn't play too much in his game on those. Like I played in a lot of his games after our game master there. His name was Ted. He was pretty good. He was brilliant. He had some great ideas. He could pull an adventure right out of his butt. No problem. He was pretty on key on what he wanted to present to us for an adventure, and it wasn't hard for him to figure something out for us to do on the fly. Then once we got started, he would write notes. I ended up learning a lot from him, where you don't plan too much. Because if you plan too much, what happens is, the characters can easily go off track, and all that prep time that you've invested in your adventure is kind of gone out the door. So you don't never plan that way. You saw a lot of GMs on YouTube saying, "Oh, you know, here we got an easy way to plan all this stuff," and so they show you all their planning, and in reality, unless you were the GM, because a lot of GMs now will say, okay, you gotta have to stick to the storyline, right? But half the fun is going off story, you know, for the players, and they tend to do that a lot. So unless your GM is very, you know, says, look guys, I'm here to present a story, so are you playing it or do we just call it? And you're kind of stuck with going through a story. I mean, a lot of them are good where they'll give you a lot of leniency on what you want to do. But the problem is, it doesn't always work that way. The players always figure out ways to mess you up. Like, well, apparently mess you up. If you go in with the mindset that, you know, that you're letting them mess things up, that's great. And then you're having just as much fun as they are. But you have to make your adventures very malleable. Sometimes you almost have to trick the players too into they're thinking they're going the right way and circumventing your plan, but in actuality your plan was so, you know, malleable that that when when they're technically off track, they're on. You still got stuff for them to do. So it's always good to have is you plan your adventures to be able to run no matter what direction they go. There we go. That's looking more cow-like. We're getting that glaze over top is working quite well. Yeah, and then yeah, I'd say we put a little bit of blue underneath his in some of his arm here, just to give it a tinge. I think I might even use a wash on that to kind of thin out a wash with a bit of blue in it, and then a little bit of red on the top, a little wash with the red. We'll see how that works. We need this guy to dry up first before we even attempt that, and by the looks of it, we're pretty much coming to the close of our 2-hour stream anyways. So I'll let this guy dry, and then I will keep him for the next session. And now I have a little bit more better of a plan with him to keep going here. Wash off the brush. These cheap brushes, they work pretty good. You can, you know, and that was a monster brush, man. You don't need to go with all these little teeny tiny ones all the time. So there's my brush soap. We're just going to get a bit going here. I always want to clean these Artist Opus brushes all the time, so to keep them in fantastic shape. Now, this isn't the soap that comes with the Artist Opus brush. It's the Masters. What's it called? Masters brush cleaner. So you just swish this stuff in your hand like so, and eventually you will see that whatever residue of paint that's in there will all come out. I already see the soap is changing a little bit of a color, that brown that I was using. Add a little bit more water. Just keep on going. Give it a bit of a twirl on your hand. Get paper towel and get rid of the extra foam there. Swish it around just to make sure that all that foam is at your brush. By the looks of it, it is. This is where the paper here for watercolor paint comes in handy. Pulls that moisture off your brush as you roll it on the paper here, and you get your nice sharp corner tip once again here. So, and you stick that back into the brush box, which is supplied by Artist Opus, and keep it nice and safe. Grab the box here, put her in there, and she is safe. Safe. There's they got their own soap in here in case you want to use that, but I got this master soap here, so it's basically the same stuff. No difference between the two. You can get these engraved with different things in them as well. On the inside, it has the Artist Opus on the inside, and you can get, like I say, your own initials in here and stuff like that. I just went with the standard M box. So. Mine warped, just to let you know. This you can see that the edge over here doesn't close properly. That's kind of typical when it comes up north, when it goes through a freeze thaw process. So that's what happens to guitars too if you're not careful. So things to look out for with wood and the environment going from one extreme to another. Well, hopefully, you guys key in on this, whoever it is that shows up. If you can, join up with my group join up with my stream for the next one. So it'll be on next one will be Sunday. So Sunday, same time, 7 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. And I'll be here. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do. We'll probably continue on painting this Minotaur and some other minis, and keep on going and see where we get with those. If you have any questions, just let me know. Take care, guys.